Hey everyone, I wanted to share one of my latest Activepieces automations with y'all. This post that I shared on LinkedIn had a lot of engagement, so I figured I'd kind of do a quick walkthrough. This is my process for automating my podcast news submission each week. For those that may not already be aware, I'm a bit of a nerd, but what I mean is me and a couple buddies, we do a podcast that goes towards our marketing company that we do for trading cards and tabletop games. So each week, it's important for us to make sure we get our facts straight and all the news and everything in order. And here's our little process that I've put together to kind of keep us on top of things and make sure we're reporting the right news. So I wanted to touch on the first element here, which is the trigger flow. So every week on Saturday, we'll record the podcast on Sunday. The trigger will kick off at 5 p.m. and you'll notice that there is no output, though. It's just the trigger. So it's important to include the get current date function here. And this get current date function is going to provide us with the following result. This following result is really important because we'll call to it later. So make sure if you're to do a flow like this that you're including get current date. Then I wanted to prompt our Discord. So we have a Discord with quite a few amount of people in there. I want to make sure that everybody understands when you're coming up with these content processes and trying to figure out ways for things to work best for your podcast. It's kind of like a two-way channel. Not only are we sourcing news and information from across the internet, but I think it's really important to engage users within your own communities. So this Discord component's really important. I named it Hookshot, so it's a webhook essentially. Here's the webhook URL, and then a little ping, attention gamers, friendly reminder to share any news that you may have as it relates to TCG and tabletop gaming world. Click the link below to submit, to get your submission before we record tomorrow. And I suppose I could show that real quick because I think it's kind of cool. All these programs, by the way, are locally hosted on my own server, so I think that's kind of fun. But here's the FormBricks submission form. Looks like my logo isn't registered in there right now. I'll need to put that back. And I need to update some of this copy. We've since changed some of our processes on the podcast, but this should give you a general idea of kind of how things go for the user. And for those that don't know, FormBricks, it's kind of like a type form. So let's see here. And it's kind of twofold on this FormBricks situation as well. With the list that we're building, not only is our audience mostly developers for these games, but they're also consumers as well. So it's good to sort of build that list for remarketing purposes if we so choose. News. Boom. Are you seeking any marketing services for a project? No. Thank you. All right, and that goes back to our website. Hooray us. So, back to this. People will have submitted their news, and that news then basically gets sent to us via email. I don't have the email component in this flow just because I want us to all personally audit the submissions. We don't get a lot, so maybe at some point I'll start integrating in this flow and letting AI parse it out. But for the time being, that's how this runs. From there, we create a Google Doc. Now, this can be done in two different ways. The Google Doc is nice because it allows for, markdown formatting, and it makes things look nice. But I could also use Google Sheets as a repo for this, which I'm considering remixing, so to speak. But for the time being, we're going to create a Google Doc that has the title of our podcast, which is called Stacking the Deck and News. And then it's going to have the get current date result, which is the differentiator between each Google Doc that it's making week over week. So, and I just have a placeholder, insert copy there. So there'll be a fresh Google Doc in our Google Drive that, each week has insert copy here, and we'll remove that. And I'll touch on that in a second on why that is the way it is. From there, we have to route our permissions. Our permissions are basically what's going to allow each user to hop into the Google Doc and make live edits. Again, I'll touch on that more in a second. But here's my permissions, my co-host permissions, and we're just going to call the Google Drive update permissions function to make sure that those are, doing what they need to do. Now, if you want to know how to set up the permissions for all these things in Activepieces, I can walk you through that. It's really pretty straightforward how to do Google OAuth, authorizations. But if there's any questions on that, I'm happy to make a quick video as well. So after we've updated the permissions, we're going to want to go back and find that document. And the reason why we're finding that document is we want the record ID, and we want to be able to send that document back to us. So we could go back and call the created document earlier, but I just want to make sure that it's all linked up. Everything's working as it should. So I've gone and put this find document function in there. And that find document is going to fetch the link for how we can access our Google Doc. From there, we send an email. An email is going to go out to each of us with the permissions that are associated with it, all of our Gmails and Yahoo in this case. I like to put a little delay here just to make sure that the email has been sent out between that and the read document. So after that, we're going to have this read, and it's going to basically take all the content that we've put inside for, and the delay, by the way, is for 23 hours. I guess this is the part I should really emphasize here. So the day prior to the podcast, we have this document that's sent to us via email, and it's empty. It says insert copy here. Well, inside of that document, we're each going to put our own copy in there, and it's going to be around about information of things we want to talk about and news of that sorts. And then after 23 hours has passed, Google Docs then reads the document. We then insert it into a Google Sheet, and this is just for logging purposes. So again, I could work the Google Sheet earlier into the flow. But we're going to insert a Google Sheet, or insert a row, and the subtraction is in place because we want to make sure that we're not referencing the same rows week over week. This is really intentional, and this is later in the AI process. I don't want AI reporting on, or I don't want our AI basically sharing news in our submissions that is old news, because that's what was happening. Is we'd have we'd insert the row, go back the week before, then get that row, and then I want to make sure to tell Perplexity here that we do not want to reference that row. So here's a quick little Perplexity prompt, and I think there's always refinement on prompt engineering, so to speak, for Perplexity. To give a little context here, I guess I'll read the prompt to you guys, but find me trending news from Get Current Date, which is what we created earlier at the top of this prompt, and to 7 days ago. So for the past week, focused on trading card games from across the internet. Give me 8 stories about different games, where 2 of the stories are about a game that's considered to be an indie TCG stories. You have as many details, data points, and drama as possible. That makes for good news, right? That's good content. Such as their funding and reasons why people should look forward to the product. Be sure to include the following stories. That is the read document body content that we're calling for previously. So summarize into clear points. Each story must be a paragraph long, feature a web URL. If the story does not have a web URL to share, then do not use the story. This is important because when we have our final output that's sent to us via Gmail, I want to make sure, or Google Doc, we want to make sure that we have all the actual links to our stories. Share the news and why it's noteworthy along with any relational insights. And then I say some websites to go visit. Rules, and then do not mention any content from the following Google Sheet. That's the get row value from the subtraction. So the previous week, do not reference anything from the previous week. And then from there, we're going to update the row. Just make sure that the latest content's available. So that way, when we iterate, when we do this next week, it's going to call the news that we made this week, and it's going to say, okay, we don't want to say what we mentioned last week, so we're going to do something new. I run it one more time through GPT-4o just to format it in maybe like show notes format and also Markdown. I won't read you this full prompt, but it's basically, the do's and don'ts of our show and, kind of what we're looking for. After that, we're doing our final row update, making sure that the final output's included in there. And then we're going to take Markdown to HTML. And the Markdown to HTML is GitHub flavor, minimum header level 1. This is all pretty basic stuff. All the content in our AI prompt, we're going to want to carry it over to here. And you'll see, if I scroll down a little bit, my head's in the way, but you'll see it's just all HTML. And from there, we shoot our email over. So let me pop over and show you the email output real quick, just so you guys can see a quick look at that. Okay, and here we go. So this is the email output. Here is the Markdown formatting. For those that don't know, Markdown is basically, it's essentially code that gives you your H1 titles, your H2 titles, your bold, it makes your documents look nice. So here's Stacking the Deck podcast show notes. Looks like the links didn't carry over. I need to fix that. I know the issue there. But otherwise, it looks really good, right? It's all the structure. Here's the headline, why it's noteworthy, source URL. And so this is how we collectively contribute to the news and information using Activepieces for our podcast. Now, if you thought this was helpful, or if there's anything else that you'd like to know about automation or content, things of that nature, please drop a comment in the YouTube description or wherever else I may post this. And I'd love to see if there's any way that I can help you figure out how best we can integrate some of these practices into your business, your company, your hobby, whatever it might be. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.